and welcome to the Itinerary. Today we will take a look at how one can be a good boss. In 2021, we are long past the days where it's acceptable for a leader to be tyrannical and uncaring of the teams they manage. But there still is a lot of work to be done in this space. So with me now are some people who are committed to creating good working environments for staff and developing leaders that we can all be proud of. Ksenia Eliseeva, Learning and Development Manager of Park Hyatt Auckland, which has a worldwide reputation for its internal development and progression of its people. Les Morgan, COO of Sudima Hotels, who were Employer of Choice winners in 2 separate awards in 2019, and Debra Buckley, CEO of New Zealand Institute of Management and Leadership, a non-for-profit organisation that supports people and business through education and professional development. Now tell us, just how important is it to be a good boss?
It's absolutely essential to be a good boss. If you're in an environment where you haven't got a good boss, you should do something about that. And as you mentioned earlier, it's not acceptable in this environment. It has never been acceptable to be in a work environment where it's toxic or you feel like you're not succeeding.
Yeah, people do not leave bad jobs, they leave bad bosses. And in a current climate where we work so hard to secure top-notch talent, we can't afford losing them just because of bad management. And we're working so hard to get that retention and secure our talent and allow them to grow further with our company that it would be a shame to lose them just because of their leadership style.
Well, I'm going to challenge the norm and say it's okay to be an average boss because it's instructional, and sometimes we have to be really direct and just instructional. I have a greater challenge with being a bad leader, and I think that that's something that within New Zealand we certainly need to work on, is just defining the two, that actually piece of what we do is really instructional and it's about task and it's about getting stuff done, but actually leading is the piece that motivates, inspires and draws the best out of others. And I think that's where as New Zealand we really need to focus our growth.
So are we saying that it is in fact detrimental to an organisation and its brand to have what we call a bad boss? What are those implications?
Brand is really driven by the people, and leaders are fundamental to any organisation. And if you take a step back and think we spend most of our waking day surrounded by our workmates or our leader, it is fundamental to think that there's a connection. I think one of the things that's most important is just to understand that a good leader and a good boss, a good relationship is built out of trust. And it's how quickly we can build up those foundations of trust that then allows us to have influence, that then allows us to sit back and say, actually, I work for someone who I kind of like, or at least I respect. So it does impact the brand, because you've got to remember when people leave at the end of the day, they're talking about the brand, the person that they work for, in hopefully a really positive light. And if it's a negative light, then you can't help but think, like, I don't want to shop there, or I don't want to eat there, or I don't want to go and stay there, based on reflection you've heard from just one person. So I think it's crucial.
Everybody comes to work for their own reasons, and you've got to be in a work environment where you feel like you can take part or make a difference. So I think the leadership or the boss is critical, because the success of your employees makes that brand. The obvious thing, of course, is a boss can often be the most influential person. So like a poor employee can really affect business, a bad boss can probably have a more critical effect. So the simple answer is, I guess, is that a bad boss is certainly bad for business and bad for the brand. But from my point of view, a bad boss is just bad for me personally, and that's the most important thing. Yeah.
Tell me, do you think customers care about how staff are treated in the work environment?
They absolutely do, and they'll certainly remind you pretty quickly if they observe something or sense something that's not right. But a customer benefits from a good employee, and that's because the sincerity of the employee or the work environment comes through. There's no hiding that. A customer absolutely senses that and sees that, and they'll often reward the employee, or write a letter or write an email and let you know that. And equally, they'll let you know if things are wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. If the customer believes that staff is undertrained, they will put it in their feedback. And that happens on a regular, whether they did have grounds for that or not. And then again, people see how staff is treated. as a social experiment, if you even try to tell your staff off for something in front of the guests, they will be on the side of the employee. Oh no, treat them nicely, don't talk to them like that. So everybody wants staff to be treated nicely, not only us from the inside, but customers from the outside as well.
Yeah, I'd just add to that. I think that the employee is a reflection of the leader. So while you may not always as a customer have a direct experience of seeing a leader or a boss managing a situation, dealing with conflict, raising a challenge, the employee, the way in which they engage with the customer is a direct reflection of the leadership within an organisation. And I think it's something, no matter how you try, you can't mask it. Your employees will go above and beyond, will give just that little bit more if the environment that they're coming from is one of positive, and certainly one where there's set expectations and they're given task ownership. That will shine through far above an employee who's challenged by their environment.
If you learn about a leader in your organisation that is not leading the way or conducting themselves in a way that a good leader should, how do you handle that situation?
As a COO, I have no toleration. I don't tolerate it at all. Obviously, there's a bit of counselling that takes place, but if I genuinely feel that we've got a leader or any employee that is not demonstrating our values and they can't justify to me reasonably, then I don't tolerate that. We free up their future pretty quickly. It's important because a negative person can have a bigger impact on the business than sometimes you think of, especially if you're in a senior leadership point of position or any leadership point of view. Sometimes you can tolerate a poor leader because you don't have to have daily interaction with them. But the truth is it's not fair on the rest of the team. So I believe a strong leader takes really firm action with that.
Look, I'm probably more timed about it, so I'm somewhat reflective. I would stop and say, look, is this a first offence? How far deep are they in this process? Are they the kind of person who's continuously not performing? What training have they had? How great's their leader? Has there been a good induction process? Did we set expectations that align to their position description? For me, I'd probably build a really big picture before I'd take action. I'm all for taking action, but I think out of respect for the brand, the business, the employee, it's vital that I have all the information before I act.
I agree with both actually, but I would probably look at the bigger picture too. If it's middle management, the case might be, what if they don't know how to lead? You have those top performers sometimes that you put further up the ladder, but did we teach them how to lead people? Do they know how to lead people? Because it's very different transitioning from a high performer to now team leader. And that's where I think a lot of the challenges lie in middle management, and has their manager given them enough support and tools to be as good as they should be. So if it's lack of tools and lack of knowledge, we'll probably do our best to support the person. However, if it was a decision made by the person with all the tools and knowledge they had not to be a good leader, that's a completely different situation.
Yeah, for me, I have very high expectations of everybody who works for us. Very high. And I know that they enjoy that. If I expect more of you, then you tend to do better. And then we can create an environment where people can be successful and have some room to be themselves and have some fun. But you can only do that if there's really clear boundaries.
Tell me, what does a good working environment look like?
Where you can be yourself, where the work and life balance are, 50-50, where people get to have their life, and be honest, sometimes it's more one or more another, depending on the situation, but you do not feel like you spend your whole life at work. And where you get that great reward, whether from the customer service that you provide and enjoying yourself and the duties that you're doing, or interaction also with your co-workers, with your boss, learning that you get from it, growth, you feel like you have done something important and you have that reward. I think that's the environment that most employees thrive.
I think the most important thing is having an environment, or trying to create an environment as a leader or as a boss, where everyone can achieve their goals. In a workforce, especially in a hotel situation, we've got a very diverse workforce. We have to accept some people are there just to collect the money. We've got other people who are there for careers, people there for all sorts of reasons. And so you've got to find a way of stimulating everybody. And sometimes that might be little things and it might be big things. So with a complex environment like that, I think it's important to try and find a way that everyone can find their own way. Everyone has a different speed. So I think that's the sign of a successful environment where everyone feels they've got a place, and as Ksenia says, they can be themselves, they can earn what they like, achieve all those sort of goals. I think that's really the key.
Yeah, I agree. Look, I think a work environment's a really complex ecosystem, and we often underrate it, just how complex it is. And, for me, within our own organisation and for those organisations we work with, we talk about two things, creating an environment where people can grow. And that doesn't just mean promoted, that just means people can grow. They can learn new knowledge, they can share their ideas. And the second thing we focus on is a place where people have joy. And I think if you can walk out of there at the end of the day and say, like, I had a moment of joy, then, you feel a whole lot better about yourself and you're a much better contributor to your family and society. And so I'd hate for us to start underestimating just the power of actually taking a moment to celebrate the fact that we are there, we are contributing, we're doing good stuff, but actually to stop and have a moment of joy is really important.
Now, hospitality and tourism, unfortunately, seems to have a bit of a negative stereotype about having bad working environments. Is it true? What is it we can do to resolve and change this to ensure that we have better environments in our workplaces?
I think it's the amount of stress a lot of the time that people refer to. You can't always predict how many guests or customers you will have, and even if you can, things go wrong. When you deal with people, it's always unpredictable. So just the amount of stress that sometimes people deal with when they're facing the guest, I think is quite heavy sometimes. For that reason, I think the number of people who are trained being at work at the same time is very important. And also allowing that support, allowing breaks, allowing time to get yourself together after a really busy shift or during a busy shift, and knowing when our staff knows that there is somebody who can come and back them up when things get heated, they feel more, let's say, secure in that environment. But I don't think there is any short-term or easy answer in order how to make hospitality easy. It's a work in progress, and just listening to your employees and trying to do your best to enable them.
Yeah, I'm not sure where the reputation comes from. I mean, in my career, and I've been in this a long time, I've worked and owned restaurants and bars and worked in hotels for 30 years. I haven't really seen negative environments. I've seen the odd bad leader, but I don't know, hotels for me just seem to be a much more professional place. I mean, I'll give you an example. We haven't tolerated poor performance from a chef for 30 years. There's never been a Gordon Ramsay in a hotel that I've worked in. It's just not permitted. So I think where possibly where the reputation has grown is maybe their businesses where those disciplines aren't in place. We're often, of course, around alcohol, and there's a lot of late nights and long shifts. But none of those things are excuses for poor behaviour. I think as an industry we just have to raise our standards and call people out, because it's not the norm. It's absolutely not the norm, and I'm not aware of those situations, or I'd be calling them out too. I think some of those things are probably a little bit of urban myth, but also, if those situations exist, then we want to know about it as leaders, because it's just not cool.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think it's changed and it's changing. I think it was different when maybe it was seen as a little stop that you do on your uni path or a pathway to a new career, but I think that's absolutely changed, and I think it's up to the industry to be really vocal about that. It has changed significantly, and particularly in the last couple of decades, and I think there's a definite career pathway, particularly within hotels. Many of them run incredible training and development programs and teach you technical, behavioural, social skills. And so I think it is changing, and it's a matter of us as an industry talking about it in a really positive light, because there is career pathway, there's career opportunity within hospitality, and I think let's start talking about it proudly.
There was an interesting topic recently in our Trends Hui that stated you can have good profit and pay well.
Yeah, I think, profit's an outcome. Don't focus on it. That's the first thing. Focus on what it is you do well. Be really clear on your number one strategy. Behave and act via your values, and profit's the outcome, and that's, what comes out of good business. But I don't think focusing on making money is the best way to get the best out of people, and it's certainly not the best way to make money, bizarrely. So I think the two go hand in hand, but not when you focus on the end game as dollars, not at all.
Yeah, I'd probably disagree slightly, because I'm at the sharp end of a big business, and obviously profit and meeting bank expectations is everything. We do tend to work backwards from that. But I'd agree, I think that you can have a successful business and pay well. I think the only way to stimulate your workforce is to remunerate them well. That's not always just about salary and wage. You know, there's a whole remuneration clock. There's lots of things you can be doing. But if you're rewarding your staff, paying them incentives, paying them performance bonuses, then the business will grow and it'll become more profitable. So, you know, as Debra said, you know, they are sort of the same thing. But obviously there's always a sharp focus on the bottom line. But you can be successful and pay well and remunerate well, and we do. I mean, you know, we as a company, we don't look at living wage or minimum wage as a flaw. We never have. You know, we far and exceed those things all the time. So, yeah, I think that where we've got to be smarter is not focusing on just wage, just salary. What other things can I do for an employee to help them, you know, either with training and development or, you know, minor things like we offer health benefits, a will service. We're about to launch free life insurance for employees. You know, we want to have hundreds of different things in that clock, and that all costs money. But the whole point, of course, is to make them more content, and as Debra says, that will result in, you know, an increased profit.
So the challenge I'd have, if you focus on profit, and that's all you're doing day in and day out is focusing on profit, then I can guarantee you're not going to be a good leader. So, you know, you need to focus on revenue. That's very different to profit, and, you know, focus on efficiencies and all of those things that lead to profit. And, you know, we're a highly successful business and we work with really profitable businesses, and their fundamental, you know, trigger is, are we making money? Can we pay the wages? I get that, but I think, you know, as a great leader, you don't want to just focus on wage, because people will still leave. I'll guarantee it.
Yeah, I think it's a question of values, Debra. For us, it's about how we go about making that money.
Yeah,
that's the key thing.
We're probably focusing more on the standard of the service, because that's what we're known for. So if we provide the service that we claim to provide, then the revenue comes. So in order for us to provide that service, we need to have a very high-end talent and train them really well, and that takes time and hence money. So in our case, yes, definitely we need to first look into what we do in order to get that talent, in order to train that talent, in order to provide that service, in order to get that revenue. So it's a very slightly longer pathway for us. But we also raised our minimum wages. They're not the national wages, yes, so we go way above, and make sure that we remunerate people, also incentivize, let's say, great behavior and great performance. And as you said, benefit grid goes a long way. You know, what do you offer on top of that? What do you offer? And to be honest, I think a lot of the things that keep employees in are not necessarily the wages. It's how they feel in the team, how much fun they have, and how at home they feel at work, how much they want to come back to work every day, say. Yeah.
How important is it to have staff trained internally, developed, and to then give them that course of progression throughout your organisation?
Well, everyone at work wants to know what's in it for me. So no matter how much we talk about our values or our company goals, secretly everyone says, yeah, that's all very well for you, but where do I win? And we recently had a hui with our young people in the organisation, anyone under the age of 25, and we asked them what was the most important thing. Was it increased salary and wages, or was it training? And overwhelmingly it was training, which we thought was a little bit interesting. And the reason for that is they want to know what's in it for them. Where's this role taking me? What's it going to lead to down the track? So to answer your question, what they want, of course, is more personal development. So we hear that, and we certainly put a lot of money into it. Where we're looking to as an industry, I think now, is not just simple training, not day-to-day how to set a table or how to clean a room. I think we're looking now for more meaningful training, you know, where we can get people that have university degrees related to hotels and tourism, and they exist but not widely. And I know Matt is really focused on trying to promote that in high schools to get more formal qualifications. So I think that's what our people want from us now, because a lot of them do come to us without formal education, so they're hoping maybe we can fill that gap. Or equally, we have people who do come are highly qualified, and they want more. They want really meaningful training. So I think pleasingly we seem to be all looking to lift that bar.
We come ready to learn. We come with a thirst for new knowledge. So, it's great when people turn up and say, what else can you teach me? But it's instinctive in us. I think, recognise that there's two pieces to learning. One is, I get really frustrated by the word soft skills because it's not. But, things that sit outside of a technical core competency, how to make a bed is one thing. But, how do you engage? How do you connect with others? How do you self-identify? How do you take on task ownership? All of those skills are things that can be learned. And we come straight out of a school or a university environment. And often we haven't had the opportunity to watch or learn those skills. And so I think education and professional development is fundamental to getting the best out of people. So effectively for me, it's a win-win.
With my experience of even training anywhere from orientation to a formal training, because we do offer formal training in-house for both culinary and front of house and reception, that results in NZQA certificate. So that offers also some of our unqualified staff to get qualifications while they're at work, and it's free. So that's crazy, and it's awesome, and they love it. And they, of course, and we are talking about, at work training. What I've noticed is that when you bring staff in at work training, whether it is wine and food matching, whether it is, how you move around the tables, how you reset the beds, they actually enjoy it as long as you make it fun. And they, a couple of times they mentioned, I feel really, invested in. I feel like I've been trained and I've been looked after. So, and I try to look everywhere between those small trainings and workshops that give them that feeling of being invested in, all the way to qualifications that allow them to advance their careers, whether with us or somewhere else. And just doing what we can. And obviously it's looking at people individually. You would have people in some departments who were doing this job for 25 years and they're absolutely not interested in moving anywhere. So those also, I think, need to be recognized, and we do our best not to push them and say, oh, you've been doing it so well, now you need to be a manager. They're like, I don't want to be. So that also, I think we also need to remember and allow them to be themselves. If they want to be in that position for another 25 years, great. Let them be.
Now let's hear from Penelope Johnson, the co-owner of hospitality organisation People Like Us, and how her personal story led to a business model that focuses on its people.
My name is Penelope Johnson, also known as PJ, and I'm the owner and director with my husband Sam Brewer here in Arrowtown. Our restaurant's La Rumbla, which is our Spanish tapas shared plates restaurant, and Slow Cuts, which is our slow cooked meats, vegetarian salads, rotisserie chicken restaurants. I grew up in the hospitality industry. I was actually born into a hotel, and I lived in a hotel until I was 7. I just loved the hospitality industry. I loved the buzz of the bar. I loved seeing the wait staff running around being busy, and I grew up with a very hospitable family. So I always knew in my heart I was a very hospitable person. But I did study and become a secondary school teacher. Went to London, taught overseas, and came back home, and I was like, my heart is in hospitality. Sam and I decided to venture out on our own and open our own restaurants here in Arrowtown. So we were like, okay, we've worked for some of the best people in the country now. We've got some really good skills in our creative crafts, like being a chef or being a front of house manager or writing wine lists, making cocktails. We can do all that. Let's go out on our own, which is 100% different than working for somebody, which we learned very, very quickly. So having our own restaurants in Arrowtown, when we opened La Rumbla 9 years ago, it was a massive challenge. It was a leap of faith. Some people 100% believed in us. Some people thought we were just crazy, but we really did have a point to prove, and we didn't really have a plan B. Our company name, People Like Us, we gave quite a lot of thought to, and we hope to attract people like us. So when we're recruiting new staff into our team, which we take really seriously, we look for practical skills, have they got the talent to do the job, but we most importantly look for things like empathy, hospitality, the same moral and cultural values that line up with our company. We love the people, we love the interaction with our guests each day. We love coming and being with our teams each day. We love that we get to be creative on a daily basis. We're making things, we're showing things to the public. There's so much to love about hospitality. So people like us, Larumbla and Slow Carts, love to offer a great working environment. You know, we have training passports for our new staff to make it really clear what the skills are and how they need to progress in this industry. We offer a shareholding program so you can work with us and become part of the shareholders of people like us. I think also a big contradiction in hospitality is that hospitality is not seen as a business. This is the business of hospitality, and first and foremost we want to teach our staff really good business skills. We are teaching you how to run a business. It just happens to be that this business is in the hospitality industry. And Sam and I, we never want to be that big that we don't know who our people are. We have one-on-one training and coaching with our staff regularly, and our senior management and leadership team are assigned different staff members, and we meet with them once every week, once every 2 weeks to work on new skills for them and personal growth for them. I would say to somebody looking for a career in hospitality to really look for a company that aligns with your values. Look for someone that has good business practices, someone that has really good staff retention. Look for friendly faces when you walk in. You can see it if you go to somebody's restaurant for dinner. You can see how the staff are interacting with each other. There's so many clear telltale signs when you're choosing where you want to work. As an employee, you have the power going into the business as much as the employer has the power over who they hire.